Welcome to another episode of the One of One podcast. My name is Sofia Aguilar and I'm your host. Listen, I just want to say thank you and remind you that you are one of one. And I'm here because you're here. And the reality is this podcast was a prayer, a wish, and now a dream come true. And I wish I had started sooner, but hey, better late than never, right? So now that we're in a few weeks of 2024, I just wanted to talk about a few things that we're going to leave behind. And if you already haven't left this behind, then we're going to start now. And I think that a lot of us expected that when the clock hit 12, that things were just going to like whoosh, magically appear. And unless you have some sort of magic trick that I don't, but I know that God is calling us to uncover and release these things progressively. And it's not just something that happens like this and we expect it to, and we have these expectations, but healing, revelation, self-discovery happens in the process. And that's the beautiful part of it. It's all about the journey and not the destination. Although the destination sounds pretty sweet and exciting, it's really what happens in that journey. So here's a few things that we're leaving behind in the past years as we look forward to this year. And I'm not talking about a month from now, a week from now. I'm talking about decisions that we're making today. Because when we really think about it, our outcome is just a bunch of decisions that we've made along the way, all put together. They're habits, they're decisions, it's a lifestyle, it's things that you've decided to do incrementally that have all cultivated together to reach that result. So that's what we're going to talk about. One of the biggest things that I noticed in the past years is that I really played small. I mean, I know I'm good at what I do. I know sometimes that I'm one of one, and you might be relating to this. Like, you're an expert in your industry. You're an expert in your field. You love what you do, yet we feel the sense of we're not good enough. And that's what we're not going to do this year, because it's not about it being an egotistical thing, but knowing that you are that expert and you are that girl and you are that man. And playing small not only affects us in our business, but our lives, our relationships. And it's that constant comparison to where we could be if only we had and it's that should and that if. And I want to drop that, because guess what? We see other people on the external, but we don't know what their battles were. We don't know what they went through. And same thing with us. Although we desire to be somewhere and think that we're not at the top of the mountain that we have gotten to, there's things that we need to reach before we get there. But don't think that just because you're not there doesn't mean that who you are right now is someone worthy to be celebrated. So we're not playing small, and we're also going to celebrate ourselves for the small, the big, all of the wins that we accomplished. Because one thing I know I didn't do enough was celebrate myself for even just getting one client, one view, one subscriber, one review. And we look at the big number and the big picture, but that's not what it's about. It's about the little things that happen in between. So I'm realizing that I need to just be grateful for the first subscriber on the YouTube channel, the first rated podcast that we got on Spotify. If I'm not grateful for the little, how can I be grateful with everything else that God has for me? So learning to celebrate and knowing that when you play small and when you water yourself down, other people don't get to see that full version of you. And so you're robbing people to experience the fullness of who you are and the talent that you have to offer, because there is so much greatness in you. But if only we could bring out that greatness. And that is the concept of understanding that you are one of one. Something else that we are not doing, okay, is copying. Now, I know imitation, or so they say, is the best form of flattery, but I see a lot of duplicates. There is way too much duplication happening in all sorts of industries, to the point that everyone's starting to look the same. There is no level of originality. And I think it's hard because on a platform like social media, where it's like, yes, aesthetics, and yes, views, and yes, likes, and, you know, people are drawn towards good and nice looking things, but that's not what it's all about. And there's a form and there's a way of making things original. And this sounds super cliche, but if you were born original, why would you die a copy? Why would you live every day of your life as a copy? And the thing is, when you're copying other people, you're always waiting for them to make a move so that you can make your next move. And that's what I felt. I really felt like, we'll talk about this another time, but as I felt like my business was being copied and imitated, I lost creativity. I lost who I was, because I felt like okay, well, if people were copying me, then I was no longer original. And yes, it was imitation and exciting and, I'm inspired, but the reality is it hurts. It hurts to have an idea and have it feeling like it's stripped away from you. And I know some people may or may not agree with me. Like, yes, this is a blessing. And there's a mindset shift that needs to come with the copy of it. Now I've realized how, instead of being offended when people copy me, I actually mentor them and I support them. And I say, hey, let me support you with this level of your business because I've been there and I can support you. So I've turned it into a strength now. Before I used to see it and I was hurt and affected by it and it would push me down. But now I've been able to treat it as a strength and make it an important pillar of my business to support other content creators who want to learn how to do what I do. And here's the thing about copying people is that you're copying their exact mistakes. You're copying everything that they've done. And so what you don't realize is you are falling into the traps. So please, 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 this year, find your X factor. Find what makes you you. And I'm doing the same every single day because we get caught up into the looks, the aesthetics, the conversations, the messaging. We want to imitate that. But the reality is you've been given a voice, you've been given a talent, and you've been given your own strategy. It's just about stepping out of that and redefining what that looks like for you. And guess what? It's not about doing the exact same thing. And some of you may or may not agree with me, but it's about doing it better. Being better than who you were yesterday, being better than last year, being better than that version that you've been trying to copy your whole life. And the thing is, it depletes your confidence. It depletes your self-worth because you constantly feel like you're relying on something else and somebody else's strategy to do what you need to do. So yeah, we're leaving that behind. And last one, I feel like we really need to leave behind the approval of people. And I'm speaking to myself, okay? I'm here preaching to the choir because I've always felt like I needed like this strong need of validation from a lot of people. Now, I don't mean asking people like, hey, what do you think of this? Hey, can you review this? Hey, can you look at this? But not making another move until somebody else validates it. And I was caught in a rat race of that because I truly believe that, unless somebody told me yes and green light, then it was worthy of their approval, right? So it was this constant need of people pleasing. It was this constant need of external validation for how I looked and what I desired. And when we look at being one of one, and when we look at being, either women or men of God or just high value women, high value men, and being authentically ourselves, other people are going to have opinions that may not align with us either. So you might be getting this person's perspective and advice and take it and realize that, ooh, like that's kind of like making me play small, or ooh, like that's kind of shrinking me down into a box. And so sometimes that validation that you're looking for is actually going to be a curse. And I realized that as well. Now I have my core group of people that I say, hey, listen, can you review this? Hey, I want to take on this client. What are your thoughts? And these are people that know me. These are people that know my business, know my values. These are people that I could trust on saying, Sofia, that's not a good idea. Or yes, that's an amazing idea. And it's important to have your key core people, but not looking for it everywhere else. And that's the thing. When you look for the validation in the money, look for validation in how we look in validation in men or alcohol or other things, we realize that when all that is gone, you don't know who you are. When all of that is gone, it is empty. And so having not only self-validation, but knowing that the validation really comes from the man, God himself. That's where the true validation comes from. That's where the true authentic version of you lies, is in knowing that you don't need the approval of anybody else because you already have the approval of God himself. And when you know whose you are, you know who you are. And you don't need the validation that comes from everybody else outside of you. So I pray that we leave these things in 2024. But hey, I pray that we leave these things behind because the best is yet to come and God's best is yet to come for all of us. And the reality is we can't continue to walk in that and walk in this at the same time. Now, healing is a process. So we can be healing and still dealing and battling with some of these things like imposter syndrome, self-sabotage, people pleasing, as I am, right? And that's just being vulnerable and authentic, that we are going to struggle with this daily, but making the decision that because we are evolving and we are growing, we are going to make the decisions, build the habits, take the steps to becoming the true, authentic, one-of-one version of us. because God's best is here for us, but we really truly need to walk in it. And as this sweater says by Victorious Caps, I'm honestly in love with it. It says, the good news is Jesus heals. So we could be going through anything. We could be battling anything this year, but the good news is Jesus heals, and he has already won the battle. He is already victorious. And if he is for us, then who can be against us? So I wish a fruitful, prosperous, an incredible year for you, your family, your business, your heart, your mind, your body, and your soul. And thank you for listening to the podcast. Thank you for supporting it. Thank you for being on here and soaking this in with me. Please leave a review, rate, subscribe, and share with a friend if this was something that you loved and that you want somebody else to experience as well. Have an amazing day. God bless you. And remember, you are one of one. And I will see you on the next episode of the One of One podcast.